Right now we're going to talk about your yoke Endshake and how it's corrected. So you remove the yoke from the revolver and the cylinder from the yoke, and then you put the yoke back in the frame, close the yoke, and then you apply pressure 4 1/2 here. And I can feel that yoke move 4 1/2. And the reason it moves is because this metal right here, there's more metal removed off there or the frame, and this allows it to play 4 1/2 against this shoulder. Now, this shoulder's like a locking lug right here. And whenever it is in the revolver and it closes, it should shoulder right against the frame in this area here, and it should be feeling snug. So since we had the yoke Endshake, we get a PY2, slide it over the yoke, place the yoke in the frame, close it, and you should feel just a little resistance right there. That means this area is bearing against the frame right here. And you have to have that regardless what people tell you about yoke Endshake. It has to have all of it removed when this is up like this in the frame and the yoke is closed in the frame. So that takes care of your yoke Endshake. A lot of times your yoke will be out of alignment. So you take your alignment tool, place it in the barrel of the yoke, close the yoke, place the tool in there, and you push it to the rear. And you see it hits a little bit at 12 o'clock in this area right here. So that means it's up a little bit in this particular gun. Now when I say 12 o'clock, that means when you're pointing the revolver away from you. 12's it up, 3's right, 6 is down, and 9's to the left, pointing the firearm away from you. So that alignment tool is hitting at 12 o'clock. So all we do is open the yoke with alignment tool in it, take the handle that comes with your yoke alignment tool fixture, and you slide it over the barrel of the yoke, and you apply pressure down. This gives you a gentle bend that you can control that bend. You apply a little pressure down with it until you feel like it's bent a little bit. Then you close it again. See how it went in that hole? Look at that, straight in. So that yoke is in alignment. Now if it had been hitting on the left-hand side, which would be at 3 o'clock, we would have been slide this over. Actually, if it's hitting at 3 o'clock, which would be hitting on the right-hand side of the hole, then what we want to do is bend this way towards you, and that'll spring it to where it'll go to the center alignment of the pinhole. But that's good alignment right there. All right, the yoke is in good alignment. The next thing we discuss when you got the yoke in good alignment with the 1 PC or PY2 on it is your cylinder. So you place the cylinder on the barrel of the yoke, place it in the revolver, and close it. Now this is cylinder Endshake. You apply pressure with your left and right hand thumbs, and you push. If you look, you can see that move. Now we're guessing that's about 2 thousandths, maybe a little bit more. So you remove the cylinder, remove it from the yoke. Now we're doing this with a loose ejector rod. So we take the ejector rod out of the cylinder, spring and the center pin, and you try 1 PC2, which is 2 thousandths thick. Now you'll notice on Smith & Wesson, you have to take the center pin and ejector rod out in order to get the bearing in there. So the spring holds it down. Finger tight. Place this on the barrel of the yoke. Be sure you didn't lose your PY2 on the yoke. Zero Endshake. Now you got to be sure it moves freely. The cylinder turns free. Now if this was too tight, That means you'd probably have to take the yoke out and you use your Power Custom sleeve that slides over the KL and N. Slide the sleeve over and you use a hammer boss cutter, which is the same as a yoke cutter, and just turn it this way, and that takes a little bit of the metal off the back of the barrel of the yoke, and that gives you a little more adjustment on the yoke so that it won't be too tight. And it's all trial and error. But this one's a good one. Now we're ready to torque the ejector rod in. Now we are assuming that we have the correct head space. That's covered under gunsmithing. Whenever you adjust the head space, you have to adjust it with this area here on the extractor where it seats in the frame here. You might have to take a couple thousandths off and maybe lower your ratchets 3 to 5 thousandths below that area there. Your ratchets should be lower than that. And they set that back, gives you head space. But usually when you move the cylinder to the rear, that gives you more cylinder gap. So you don't want to have too much cylinder gap. Or you have to set the barrel back and adjust cylinder gap. So now we're ready to torque in the ejector rod. Use your Power Custom wrench, and you'll notice this first number is 6. That's for 6 series Ruger, security speed 6s. That area there, those revolvers, and then KL and N is the center one, and this is the Smith & Wesson J frame for these. So just put that over the ejector rod, tighten the screws. That clamps those, and then you got to put a lot of pressure on there. You got to get them pretty snug. All right, now see that turns that. See the cylinder turns. Now we're going to tighten it, which is counterclockwise on the later model guns. Now, we don't know what we got, but if you get it tight enough to the proper tension, which is 45 to 50 inch-pounds, most people just screw it on good and snug by hand and let it go. But you can put a couple empty cases in the cylinder. You hear it break over, that inch-pounds wrench. So that's 45 inch-pounds. So it won't come loose. You don't need Loctite. You never want to use Loctite in those threads because you can't get to them. So now we're going to remove it from the wrench. All right, now we're ready to use our alignment tool. And when you get this alignment tool, you won't get a dial indicator with it. This is specifically designed for the Nichitoyo dial indicator, but there's other dial indicators that'll work. It's also cheaper. But you put your dial indicator on your stand, and you can just put it on there snug where you can still move it to adjust it and before you tighten it up. Then you put this back on the frame. Okay. Now you see this screw here, that's a stop for your dial indicator holder. So you might want to adjust it a little bit when you put the rod in it. Use the Allen wrench on the front. Bushing, put the bushing on the cylinder. Loosen the back. Put the cylinder in there like that. Put the bushing in there and tighten it up. Cylinder needs to turn free. Okay, now we slide this under it. That gets under it. Now see, it needs to go back under the smooth part, so we adjust that stop where it's underneath the smooth part of the rod. Okay, you see we're about 5/1000ths off. So you rotate it to where this is counterclockwise. That means the end of this is up. Now, by the way, when you got your extractor rod and alignment tool, you got a little spring that come with it, and you put that little spring in this cup. That gives you extra pressure pushing up on that rod to read the extreme readout on your ejector rod. So don't forget to put the spring in there, because it won't read correctly without a spring in there. All right, where it's counterclockwise on a dial indicator, you take your handle and slide the small end of the handle over the rod, and you apply pressure down, because remember it was pointing up, you put pressure down. It's trial and error. There, within 1/1000ths right there, that's close enough. See, it just barely moves. So that means we got a straight ejector rod. Every time you unscrew that ejector rod, it'll never go back straight until you straighten it after you torque it in, because when you torque it in, the torque will pull this a little bit one way or the other, a few thousandths. So torque it into the proper inch-pounds and then straighten it again. And you can straighten it about 4 or 5 times before you have to re-torque it to 45 to 50 inch-pounds.